My name is Molly Davis, and I'm 32 years old. 3 days ago, I sat in a lawyer's office, read a single sheet of paper, and laughed so hard the attorney actually lowered his glasses and asked if I was okay. Not a polite laugh, not a nervous one. The kind of laugh that comes from finally understanding something you should have understood a long time ago. My parents hadn't spoken to me in 2 years. No birthday messages, no holiday calls, not even a forwarded text pretending to care. Just silence. Sigh. And then suddenly, their lawyer reached out. One document. One page. They needed my signature to sell my grandfather's lakeside cabin, the only place in my entire life that ever felt like it belonged to me. That paper was supposed to take something from me. Instead, it gave me the one thing my family never did. Proof. Proof that someone, somewhere, had believed I was worth protecting. Before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe, but only if you believe in knowing your worth and not letting others define it. And if you're here with me right now, tell me where you're listening from and what the temperature is there. This is a fictional story. Some elements are enhanced with AI to make it more vivid, but the emotions behind it are real. Now, back to the night everything ended. Christmas. I grew up just outside Asheville, North Carolina, the kind of town where people smile at you in public and talk about you the second you leave. My father, Richard Davis, was the regional manager at Blue Ridge Trust Bank, the kind of man who built his reputation on firm handshakes and quiet authority. My mother, Elaine, ran the church charity committee, organized every fundraiser, every holiday dinner, every event where people could admire her. From the outside, we looked perfect, like one of those framed families you see in home decor stores. And then there was my younger sister, Claire, 3 years younger, and somehow, always 3 steps ahead in my parents' eyes. Claire got violin lessons. I got, maybe next year? Claire got a used Toyota Corolla for her 16th birthday. I got a bus schedule and a reminder that responsibility builds character. Claire had the master bedroom because she needed space. I had the smaller room next to the laundry area and learned how to sleep through the sound of spinning cycles at midnight. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because it matters. My parents never hit me. They never yelled. They didn't need to. They just distributed love differently, like I was a line item in a budget they could quietly reduce without anyone noticing. My father had a phrase he used whenever I questioned it. He'd put down his fork, look at me like I was being difficult, and say, "Claire needs more support. You're the strong one. Molly, that's what I admire about you." And for a long time, I believed him. I wore strong like a badge. I worked double shifts at a cafe through high school, bought my own clothes, paid for my own books, handled everything. It took me years to realize what he actually meant, because in my father's vocabulary, strong didn't mean valued. It meant convenient. It meant quiet. It meant she won't ask for anything. And that meant she wasn't worth giving anything to. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college, a bachelor's degree in accounting from a state university. I earned it while working 25 hours a week at a tax office, 4 years of early mornings, late nights, and doing everything on my own. No financial help, no cosigner, just me and an alarm clock set to 5:15 every day. My parents said they would be there. My mom even talked about what she planned to wear. My dad asked about parking, like he was actually going to show up. I reserved 4 seats, 2 for them, 1 for my sister Claire, 1 for my grandfather, Henry Davis, the only person who had ever made me feel like I mattered. The morning of graduation, my phone rang at 7. My father's voice was casual. Something came up. Your sister's moving into her new apartment. She needs help with furniture. I stood there in my dorm room, holding a neatly pressed blouse and a pair of heels I had saved up to buy. In the background, I could hear my mother asking where the tape gun was. It's just a ceremony, she called out. You already have the degree. Honey. So I walked across that stage alone. I sat surrounded by families cheering for someone else's child. I propped my phone against a bench and took my own graduation photo using a timer. That afternoon, my phone rang again. This time, it was Grandpa Henry. I'm proud of you. Molly, he said, his voice thick, like he was holding something back. And don't worry, I already took care of it. I didn't understand what he meant. I thought maybe he was talking about a card or a check. It would take me 7 years to realize what he had really done for me. I met Ethan Cole when I was 26. He was working on the electrical system in the office building where I had just started as a junior accountant. I heard him before I saw him, humming softly while tracing wires above the ceiling tiles. Something old, something country, slightly off-key but steady. Ethan was an electrician, licensed, hard-working, running his own small business out of a worn-out van with his name barely visible on the side. He worked long days. His hands were rough. His boots were worn down. On our third date, he brought me a small bundle of wildflowers from a roadside stand because the florist was closed and he didn't want to arrive empty-handed. We got married when I was 28. It was a small ceremony on the courthouse steps. Quiet, simple, real. Grandpa Henry had passed away 3 years earlier, and I felt his absence in every good moment I couldn't share with him. My parents showed up briefly, just long enough to be seen. A week later, at a family dinner, my father sat at the head of the table, carved into his usual position of authority. He looked across at Ethan and spoke in that calm, controlled tone that always made you question if you'd heard him correctly. I thought you'd aim higher. Molly, an electrician, that's a downgrade. My mother said nothing, just pressed her lips together. Claire didn't even look up from her phone. Ethan didn't react. Not in that moment. But on the drive home, his eyes stayed on the road as he said quietly, I don't need your father to respect what I do, but I need him to respect you. That was the moment I almost walked away from my family. I almost did, but something stopped me. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the part of me that still believed my grandfather would have wanted me to keep trying. So I stayed. For a little while longer. Until Christmas. 15 people packed into my parents' living room, voices overlapping, glasses clinking. The kind of gathering where everything feels warm on the surface and sharp underneath. Claire pulled me into the kitchen. She needed $5,000. It was the third time she had asked. The first 2 loans had never been repaid. She said it was for inventory, a boutique she was planning to open. I said no. Calmly. Clearly. She nodded, wiped at her eyes, and walked back into the living room. Seconds later, her voice cracked just enough for everyone to hear. And then my father stood up. What kind of sister refuses to help her own family? His voice cut through the room. Everyone went still. My aunt froze mid-pour. My cousin stared at me like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. You've changed, Molly, my father said, and not for the better. Then my mother leaned closer to my aunt and whispered, just loud enough. She's been like this ever since she married him. Honestly, I think she needs professional help. The room went completely quiet. 15 people. Not one voice. My Aunt Carol stared down at her glass like it suddenly mattered more than anything else. My Uncle Mark cleared his throat and reached for a cookie he didn't even want. My cousin Emily looked at me with wide, uncertain eyes, like she was searching for permission to speak and couldn't find it. I stood there in the middle of that living room and felt something I hadn't felt since the day I graduated. Invisible, surrounded by people, and completely alone. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just put on my coat. I leaned down, kissed Emily's baby gently on the forehead, and walked toward the door. Ethan was already there, keys in his hand, jaw tight, eyes steady. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. That was the last time I walked out of my parents' house. Silence is a strange thing. You would think it feels peaceful. No arguments, no pressure, no constant reminders that you're not enough. 2 years without guilt calls, without holidays that felt like emotional landmines, without my mother's dramatic sighs or my father calmly explaining why Claire needed more than I did. But silence isn't empty. It gets filled. And my parents made sure of that. Within weeks of that Christmas, they had rewritten the story. My father called relatives. My mother spoke to everyone at church. They told it so cleanly, so confidently, that it sounded like truth. Molly is unstable. Ethan is controlling her. She's isolated. She needs help. By January, Emily called me. Her voice was careful, almost hesitant. Your mom said you're seeing a therapist, that something happened at Christmas. Are you okay? I sat there, holding my phone, trying to understand how a lie could travel so fast. I had never told anyone I was in therapy, because I wasn't. My mother had created that story out of nothing and handed it to people who trusted her more than they trusted me. And it didn't stop there. My father reached out to my old boss from my college job, said he was concerned about me, in a town like that. Concern isn't concern. It's a spark. Emily told me later that my father described me as someone who might be a danger to herself. Those exact words. He used the language of mental health like a weapon. All because I said no to $5,000. All because I refused to sit quietly while they tore me down in front of everyone. One by one. The calls stopped. Aunts who used to text me on holidays went silent. Cousins who once sent birthday messages disappeared. The circle closed. Tight. And I was outside of it. By spring. The only person from my old life who still reached out was Emily. Ethan and I moved about 45 minutes east, close enough that I could go back if I ever wanted to. Far enough that I didn't have to run into my father at the hardware store on a Saturday morning. I got promoted to senior accountant at a firm where nobody knew my last name meant anything. Nobody asked questions. Ethan's business grew. 1 employee turned into 2. 2 turned into 3. We bought a small house. It had a porch, a backyard, a kitchen window that caught the morning light just right. It was quiet. It was ours. It was good. But every Christmas, something in me would hesitate. I'd scroll through old contacts, pause over names I couldn't bring myself to delete. Wonder if this would be the year someone reached out. No one ever did. Ethan never pushed me. He would sit next to me on the couch, some game playing silently on the TV, just being there. One night, I asked him, "Do you think I made a mistake?" He didn't even think about it. "You'll know when you're ready," he said. And if that day never comes, that's okay too. I drove past my grandfather's cabin once, Henry's place, out on Willow Creek Road. The dock was starting to tilt slightly to one side. The paint on the shutters had faded into a dull gray. I slowed down, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Everything about that place still felt like him. The smell of wood, the creak of the door, the way he used to have a chocolate shake waiting for me every Friday after school. So I kept driving. 2 years passed like that. Ordinary days, stacked quietly on top of each other. I was healing. Not all at once, not perfectly, but I was. Then one Tuesday morning in March, An envelope showed up in the mailbox. It had a law firm's name printed neatly in the corner, one I had never seen before, and my name, Molly Davis, typed clearly across the front. That envelope stayed on my kitchen counter for 2 full days before I touched it. 2 years of silence. And then suddenly, a letter from a lawyer. If you've ever cut ties with family and then received something unexpected like that, you know the feeling, that cold drop in your stomach, that quiet question in your head asking what they want now. If this sounds familiar to you, take a moment to subscribe and tell me in the comments. Have you ever received a message that changed everything? I finally opened it on a Thursday morning. Ethan had already left for work. The house was still. My coffee was warm in my hands. The letter was clean, professional. 1 page. It came from a man named Thomas Keller, an attorney based in my parents' town. It stated that my father, Richard Davis, was initiating the sale of a property located on Willow Creek Road. My grandfather Henry's cabin, and as a potential heir, I was being asked to sign a quitclaim deed, a document that would waive any legal claim I might have to the property. There was a signature line at the bottom, a 30-day deadline, and a phone number. I read it once, then again, then a third time. 2 years without a single word. Not a message, not a question, not even a fake attempt at reconnecting. And the first time they reach out is through a lawyer, asking me to give up the last thing my grandfather ever built. I set the letter down slowly, across the kitchen. Above the stove was a small wooden shelf Ethan had installed. Sitting on it was my grandfather's tackle box, cedar wood, brass hinges, his initials carved into the lid. It still smelled faintly like lake water and oil. I had kept it after he passed. Inside it, hidden beneath old fishing hooks and tangled line, was something I had never touched. A sealed envelope. I found it 7 years ago while going through his things after the funeral. The paper had yellowed slightly. The edges were worn. His handwriting was on the front. For Molly. When you need it. I had never opened it. I always thought it was just a goodbye letter. Something soft. Something that would break me open if I read it. That night, for the first time in 7 years, I brought it into the bedroom and sat on the floor. My hands were steady until I broke the seal. Inside were 2 things. The first was a legal document. Heavy paper, official stamps, notarized. At the top, it read, Irrevocable Trust Deed. Henry Davis Family Trust. Below that, in precise type, it listed the property on Willow Creek Road, the cabin. It wasn't part of his estate. It had been placed into a trust. The trustee was listed as Jonathan Reed, my grandfather's attorney, and the sole beneficiary was me, Molly Davis. I turned the page again, just to make sure. Then once more, there was no mistake. The second item was a folded sheet of notebook paper. My grandfather's handwriting filled the page, slightly uneven, but firm. Molly, I know your father. He means well. But he doesn't see clearly when it comes to your sister. This house is yours. It always has been. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Grandpa H. I sat there on the floor, leaning back against the dresser, and cried. Not the kind of crying that tears you apart. The kind that quietly puts something back together. He knew. Before the Christmas dinner. Before I met Ethan. Before everything fell apart. He saw it. All of it. And he didn't just feel sorry for me. He did something. Ethan came home later that night and found me sitting there, the document spread out across the bed. He didn't ask questions. He just sat down beside me and rested his hand on my shoulder. The next morning, I called Jonathan Reed. He picked up on the second ring. The trust is valid. he said calmly. It's never been challenged. And your father's name does not appear anywhere in the documents. I closed my eyes. He saw me. My grandfather always saw me. That afternoon, I called the law office listed on the letter. The receptionist answered with the kind of voice that already assumes the outcome. Are you calling to return the signed document? Miss Davis, I'd like to come in. I said. I have a few questions before I sign anything. There was a brief pause. I could hear typing on the other end. Mr. Keller is available Friday at 10. Friday works, I said. I ended the call and immediately dialed Jonathan Reed. I asked him for everything. Certified copies of the trust deed, original filings, county stamps, beneficiary records, every document that proved what my grandfather had done. I'll have it ready by Thursday, he said. Then, more carefully, do you want me there with you? I paused. No, but stay available by phone. Understood. For the next 5 days. I prepared. Not emotionally. I was past that. I prepared the way I always had when something mattered. Like an audit. Every document organized. Every detail verified. Nothing assumed. I read the trust 3 times. I pulled county records and confirmed the filing date. Then I checked probate records from my grandfather's estate. Everything aligned. The cabin had been placed into the trust before he died. It was never part of the estate. It never went through probate. My father never inherited it. He just believed he had, and no one corrected him, because the only person who knew was my grandfather. And he had his reasons. Thursday night. Ethan asked if I wanted him to come. I shook my head. This one's mine. He didn't argue. He kissed my forehead and handed me a thermos of coffee. Later that night, my phone rang. Emily, I need to tell you something. I stepped onto the porch. Cool air. Crickets in the dark. Inside. I could hear Ethan moving in the kitchen. Your dad's been calling people. She said. Everyone. He's stressed. Really stressed. I stayed quiet. It's about the cabin. And Claire's business. It's not doing well. She took loans. Your dad co-signed all of them. I leaned against the railing. 8 months ago, she said. My father refinanced their house on Pine Hollow Drive. He put everything into Claire's boutique. My mother agreed. Now the business was failing. The loans were due. And my father was responsible. I think it's around 180,000, Emily said. 180,000. My father. The careful one. The controlled one. He had risked everything. For Claire. He found a buyer for the cabin. She added. Around 300,000. Enough to cover the debt and keep things going. I closed my eyes. And the only thing stopping him is your signature. I let that settle. He told everyone you'd sign. She said. He said you don't care about that place. I looked out at the dark tree line. The same sky stretched over Willow Creek Road. The same place he thought meant nothing. Thank you for telling me. I said. What are you going to do? I'm going to that meeting. Friday morning came. I placed my grandfather's tackle box on the passenger seat. It still smelled faintly of cedar and lake water. The folder of documents rested in my bag. Then I drove. 45 minutes back to the town I had left. I didn't need directions. My hands remembered the road. I passed the gas station where my grandfather used to buy me chocolate milkshakes. The middle school where I once won a spelling competition. No one from my family had come. Claire had a dance recital. I passed Oak and Third, where my grandfather used to wait in his truck. Radio low. Window open. The town hadn't changed. Brick storefronts. The faded mural. The church rising above the trees. Everything looked the same. Except me. I slowed down at the red light on Elm Street and glanced at the folder resting on the passenger seat. Certified copies. county stamps, the trust deed, Jonathan Reed's business card. Everything was there. Everything that proved the truth. I thought about the last time I had asked my father about my grandfather's estate. It was 3 days after the funeral. I was 25, exhausted, standing in a crowded room with a plate of food I couldn't eat. Did Grandpa leave a will? I had asked. My father barely looked at me. He didn't have much. He said, "The cabin comes to me as next of kin. That's how it works." He said it the way he always said things. Certain, final. Like a man so used to being right that he stopped checking if he actually was. He never hired a lawyer, never checked the county records, never considered that his own father might have made a different choice. The light turned green. I pressed the gas. I wasn't going back to argue. I was going back to finish what my grandfather had already started. The law office was on the second floor of a red brick building on Main Street, just above a dental clinic. The stairwell smelled like old carpet and coffee that had been sitting too long. The receptionist sat behind the desk, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She looked me over the moment I said my name. "Have a seat. Miss Davis. Mr. Keller will be with you shortly." There was something in her tone. Not rude, just decided. Like she had already heard a version of who I was and had filed me away accordingly. I sat down in a stiff vinyl chair beside a dying plant that looked like it had given up weeks ago. I opened my bag and checked the folder one more time. Trust deed. Certified copies. County filing records. Jonathan Reed's card with his number circled. My grandfather's handwritten letter. Protected inside a clear sleeve. Everything in place. I closed the folder and rested my hands on top of it. My heart was steady. My breathing was even. I had spent 2 years being called unstable by people who couldn't even keep a small business afloat. I could handle a meeting. The clock on the wall ticked past 9:58. A phone rang somewhere behind the desk. Then a door opened. "Miss Davis." Mr. Keller's voice was smooth, practiced. He looked to be in his mid-50s. Gray at the temples. The kind of man who expected problems to be resolved quickly. He stepped aside and gestured toward the conference room. I stood, adjusted my bag on my shoulder, and walked in. And then I saw him, my father, sitting at the far end of the table, pressed shirt, hands folded, perfect posture, exactly the same. He looked up as I entered. Same expression, same controlled calm, the same way of holding a room like it already belonged to him. "Hello? Molly." His voice was measured, almost gentle, carefully designed to sound like concern, carefully designed to remind me who he thought was still in control. I stopped just inside the doorway and turned slightly toward Mr. Keller. "I was told this meeting was between me and your office." Mr. Keller adjusted his tie. "Mr. Davis asked to be present. I thought it might help facilitate things." Facilitate. I repeated the word slowly, like it didn't quite belong in the room. Then I walked in and sat down across from my father. I placed my bag on the chair beside me, set the folder on the table, didn't open it. My father leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the polished wood, a small smile forming like he had already planned how this would go. "Let's not make this complicated," he said. "I know you're busy." "I am," I replied. He nodded, tilting his head in that familiar way, trying to soften his tone into something reasonable. "Look, I know things haven't been easy, but this isn't about us." He looked at me, steady and composed. "I know things have been difficult," my father said, his voice calm, controlled. "But this isn't about us. This is about the house. Your grandfather would have wanted this." He said my grandfather's name like it belonged to him. like he had the right to speak for the only person who had ever stood on my side. We were sitting across from each other for the first time in 2 years, and he used that name to try to push me out of the one place I still had. My fingers rested lightly on the edge of my folder, and in that moment, I understood something clearly. This wasn't going to end unless I ended it. Not with anger, not with a scene, with the truth. Sitting quietly in that folder between us, my father straightened slightly, shifting into the version of himself I had seen 100 times before. The banker, the negotiator, the man who explained things in a way that made people stop asking questions. The house has been sitting empty for years, he said smoothly. No one's using it. I have a buyer ready to close at $300,000. Your sister's business needs a short-term loan, and this solves everything cleanly. Mr. Keller slid a document across the table toward me. I looked down. Quitclaim deed. My name typed neatly beneath a blank line waiting for a signature. I picked it up, read it slowly. Every word, every clause. The room was quiet. The only sound was my father's finger tapping lightly against the table, a rhythm he probably didn't even realize he was making. I set the paper down. You didn't ask how I am. He blinked. What, in 2 years? I said evenly. This is the first time you've reached out. And you did it through a lawyer. I kept my voice calm, clear. You didn't call. You didn't write. You sent paperwork. He shifted slightly in his chair. We've tried to reach you. My phone number hasn't changed. Mr. Keller cleared his throat softly, but my father ignored him. Molly, I'm not here to revisit the past. He said, I'm here to handle a property issue. That's all. And if I don't sign, his finger stopped tapping. His jaw tightened just slightly, the way it always did when something didn't go according to plan. Then this drags out. He said, it costs everyone more money. Don't make this complicated. Don't make this complicated. The same man who stood in a room full of people and let them believe I was unstable, the same man who skipped my graduation, the same man who looked at my husband and called him a downgrade. Don't make this complicated. I leaned back slightly in my chair. Before I do anything, I said, I'd like to understand why I wasn't told about this directly. Why I found out through a lawyer. Something shifted in his expression. Not a crack. More like a quick adjustment. He turned slightly toward Mr. Keller, speaking to him instead of me. We haven't been able to reach her. He said, she cut off the entire family 2 years ago. No explanation. No explanation, I repeated quietly. My father sighed, slow and deliberate, like he was carrying something heavy. Your mother and I have tried everything, he said. He shook his head, performing concern with the same precision he used for everything else. She's been going through a difficult time. There it was. The same script, the same story. Position me as the problem. Make himself the reasonable one. Make the room feel sorry for him. Mr. Keller was writing something on his legal pad, not looking up. My husband, my father continued, lowering his voice slightly, has been influencing her. We're concerned about her situation, her environment. I watched him. Every word, every choice. Nothing had changed. I felt my pulse rise slightly, not from fear, but from how precise it all was. 2 years had passed, yet not a single word in his script had changed. He had repeated it so often it sounded like truth. Mr. Keller paused, pen hovering above his notepad, and glanced at me. I could see the question forming in his eyes. Is any of this real? I didn't answer. I didn't defend myself or explain anything. I simply looked at my father, held his gaze, and asked quietly, Are you done? Something shifted. Not loudly, but enough. His smile didn't disappear. It froze. Like a frame stuck mid-motion. I had seen him handle resistance before. Employees. Clients. Me. Years ago. But he had never seen me stop playing along. His phone buzzed. He glanced down. Raised a finger. 1 second. He answered. The room was quiet enough that Claire's voice carried clearly. Did she sign yet, Dad? I need to know by Monday. The landlord's threatening to lock the doors. He covered the phone. I'm handling it. Give me an hour. But she kept talking. Just tell her it's for the family. She always gives in when you say that. The words landed hard, clear, unavoidable. He ended the call quickly. His neck flushed red. Mr. Keller looked down again, but his pen had stopped moving. I folded my hands. She always gives in when you say that. I repeated softly. My father avoided my eyes. She's under pressure. He said, Don't take it the wrong way. I'm not taking anything. I said, I'm just listening. The room had changed. This wasn't the meeting he planned. It was supposed to be simple. Slide the paper over. Mention my grandfather. Wait for me to sign. Instead. The pattern had been exposed, and I didn't move. In that quiet. I made a decision. They weren't getting a signature. They were getting the conversation we never had. My father stood up abruptly. Molly. I've been patient. Sign the paper. He pointed at it like it was a mistake that needed correcting. This house means nothing to you. You haven't been there in years. You're right, I said. I haven't. I held his gaze. Because the last time I was there, you called my husband a downgrade. He waved it off. That was a joke. It wasn't funny. 3 words. I let them stay. He leaned forward, pressing both hands flat on the table. You know your problem, he said. You hold on to things. Your mother was right. You need help. Mr. Keller raised a hand slightly. Let's keep this productive. My father ignored him. If you don't sign, I'll take legal action. A judge will make you. I turned to Mr. Keller. Can he do that? He hesitated. There are legal avenues. But okay, I said. Both of them stopped. Just one word. Calm. I reached into my bag and placed the folder on the table. The air shifted. Before we go any further, I said, there's something you should see. My father's eyes dropped to it. He didn't know what was inside. Neither did Mr. Keller. But something tightened in the room. I unclipped the folder, opened it slowly, and placed the first document between us. It slid across the polished surface with a soft sound. My father looked down and saw it. The header was unmistakable. Irrevocable trust deed. Henry Davis, Family Trust. This is an irrevocable trust deed, I said calmly. Filed 7 years ago by my grandfather, Henry Davis, with the county clerk's office. My father's head tilted slightly, confusion breaking through his composure. What are you talking about? It names me, Molly Davis, as the sole beneficiary of the cabin on Willow Creek Road. The trustee is Jonathan Reed, Grandpa's attorney. I slid the full document across the table, all 8 pages, certified copy, county stamp clearly visible on the front. You're welcome to read it. The silence that followed was heavy. It settled into the room like something solid, pressing against the walls, holding everything in place. My father didn't touch the papers. His eyes moved from the document to my face and back again, like he was waiting for one of them to make sense of the other. Mr. Keller moved first. He reached for the document immediately, turned to the first page, read it, then the second, then the third. He removed his glasses slowly, pressing his fingers against the bridge of his nose before placing them carefully on the table. Like the paper in front of him had weight, like it might explode if handled carelessly. Then he looked at my father. I had sat through enough meetings in my life to recognize that exact moment. The moment a professional realizes the ground has shifted beneath the entire conversation. Mr. Keller didn't react dramatically. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't curse. He just looked at my father the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray when the damage is worse than expected. And my father, still standing, hands pressed flat against the table, finally stopped talking. That look on the lawyer's face, I will never forget it. For 2 years, I had wondered if I had overreacted, if I had been too sensitive, if maybe they were right about me. And now I was sitting in a room, watching the truth unfold in black and white. If you've ever been made to feel like you were the problem by the people who should have protected you, this moment was for you. Mr. Keller placed the document down carefully and turned toward my father. "Mr. Davis," he said, his tone more formal now. "Were you aware that your father established an irrevocable trust for this property?" My father's mouth opened, closed, opened again. That can't be right," he said. "The cabin was part of his estate. It came to me through probate. Mr. Keller picked the document back up and turned to the page with the filing information. He read the date, then looked back at my father. "According to this, the property was transferred into the trust 3 years before your father passed away." He spoke slowly now, carefully, "if this is accurate. And the county filing stamp suggests that it is. Then the property would not have passed through probate. It would have been excluded from the estate entirely." My father stared at him. "That's impossible. The county clerk's office will have the original on file," Mr. Keller continued, his tone measured, deliberate. "I would recommend verifying. But this appears properly executed and notarized." Then my father turned to me. His face had lost all color, like something inside him had just been pulled out. "Where did you get this? From Grandpa Henry?" My father shook his head, his voice cracking as the certainty slipped. He wouldn't go behind my back like this." I held his gaze. "He didn't go behind your back," I said quietly. "He protected his granddaughter." I paused. "There's a difference." The room went still. So still I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Somewhere outside, a truck slowed as it passed on Main Street. My father slowly lowered himself into his chair. His hands, the same hands that had been pointing, directing, controlling everything just minutes ago, now rested flat on the table. They were shaking. "Mr. Keller loosened his tie slightly and turned toward me. "Miss Davis, do you have contact information for the trustee?" I reached into my folder and handed him Jonathan Reed's card. He dialed the number and placed the call on speaker. It rang twice. Then a calm voice answered. Jonathan Reed, measured, steady, unhurried, like a man who had been expecting this call for a long time. Mr. Keller introduced himself and spoke clearly. "Mr. Reed, can you confirm the existence and validity of an irrevocable trust established by Henry Davis regarding the property on Willow Creek Road?" A brief pause. "Yes," Reed said. "I drafted the trust myself. It was executed and filed with the county 7 years ago. Mr. Davis transferred the cabin into the trust during his lifetime." Mr. Keller began writing quickly. "And the beneficiary Molly Davis is the sole named beneficiary. The property has never been part of the estate and did not pass through probate." My father didn't move. "Is the trust active and unchallenged?" Mr. Keller asked. "Active and unchallenged," Reed replied. "I currently serve as trustee." Mr. Keller thanked him and ended the call. Then he turned slowly toward my father. His posture had changed. Careful now. Deliberate. "Mr. Davis," he said, "I'm going to have to pause this process. The document I prepared is not applicable. He gestured lightly toward the unsigned paper. Miss Davis has no claim to waive, because the property was never part of your father's estate. My father shook his head. That's not possible. That's my family's house. I grew up there. I understand. Mister, Keller said. But legally, as of 7 years ago, the property belongs to the trust, and the sole beneficiary is your daughter. He hesitated slightly. There is also something you should be aware of. If you have represented to a buyer that you hold clear title to this property, that may create a separate legal issue. My father pushed his chair back abruptly. The legs scraped loudly against the floor. You plan this, he said, his voice tight, stretched between accusation and something else. Fear. You've been sitting on this for years, waiting. I didn't plan anything, I said. My voice stayed steady. I didn't even open that envelope until your lawyer contacted me. I looked at him. You brought me here. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Dad. It landed wrong. Heavy. I hadn't called him that in 2 years. And for a moment, neither of us knew what to do with it. He pressed his hands against his face, then dragged them down slowly. When he looked up again, he looked older. Not just tired, worn, like something inside him had started to unravel. You don't understand, he said, his voice breaking slightly. If I can't sell that house, your sister, the business, I co-signed everything. Your mother and I refinanced our home. We could lose it. I heard it, the desperation, and for a second, a small part of me reacted. The part that had spent years trying to be enough for him. But I stayed where I was. You co-signed Claire's loans. I said, you refinanced your house for her business. You risked everything for her. I held his eyes. And in all that time, you never once asked how I was. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. And now you want me to give up the one thing Grandpa left me to fix a problem I didn't create? Silence filled the room again. He would have wanted us to be a family, my father said weakly. I shook my head. He would have wanted you to be a father to both your daughters. That was it. Mr. Keller gathered his notepad and stood up carefully. I think it's best we end this meeting here, he said. Mr. Davis, I recommend you consult a trust litigation attorney regarding your options. Miss Davis, you're free to go. I stood up, collected the documents, placed them back into my folder. The quitclaim deed remained in the center of the table, unsigned, useless. My father didn't move. He sat there, staring at the surface of the table like the answer might appear if he looked long enough. Molly. I stopped at the door. Just one word. No control, no strategy. Just a man who had run out of moves. I turned back. And for a moment, just a brief moment, I saw the version of him from years ago. He was the man who taught me how to ride a bike on Willow Creek Road. The one who let me steer the boat even when I kept drifting too far left. The one who once carried me half a mile through the rain because I had lost my shoe in the mud, and he didn't want me walking barefoot. That man was real. He just disappeared somewhere along the way, buried under expectations, favoritism, and the quiet fear that Claire might fail. You know my number, I said. It hasn't changed. Then I turned and walked out. Through the lobby, past the receptionist, down the stairwell that smelled like old carpet and stale coffee, out into the daylight. I sat in my car for 5 minutes without starting the engine. My hands rested on the steering wheel. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel relieved. I just felt tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from one moment, the kind that builds slowly over years. But that meeting wasn't the end. My father didn't go home. He drove straight to the cabin, and he didn't go alone. That evening, Emily called me. Her voice was careful, like she was trying to soften something that couldn't be softened. "Your dad went out to the cabin," she said. "Your mom and Claire are with him. They're inside." I stood in the kitchen, still wearing the same blouse from the meeting. Ethan looked up from the stove. "They can't sell it," I said quietly. "They can't transfer it. Legally. They don't have the right." "I know," Emily said. "But your dad told your mom it's their family home. He said no document changes that." I ended the call and stared at the ceiling for a moment. Ethan turned off the burner. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "Call Jonathan." Jonathan Reed answered on the first ring. I explained everything. He listened without interrupting, the kind of silence that actually meant something. "They have no legal authority over the property," he said. "They can't sell it, lease it, or use it in any financial way. If they refuse to leave, I will send a formal demand letter. If they still don't comply, we proceed with trespassing." I closed my eyes. I don't want to have my father arrested at that house. There was a brief pause. "Then let's hope he makes a better decision," he said. I thanked him and hung up. Ethan was watching me. That look he always had when he already understood the situation but was waiting for me to catch up. "They'll leave," he said. I looked at him. "You really think so? You said your dad's a banker." He replied, "At some point. The numbers will matter more than his pride." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But my father had never been the kind of man who admitted he was wrong, not even over something small. So I wasn't sure he would start now. Saturday morning, Emily sent me a screenshot. A photo. Claire had posted it. The front porch of the cabin. My mother holding a mug. My father standing behind her, arms crossed, staring out at the water like he owned it. The caption read, "Family time at Grandpa's cabin. Some things are worth fighting for." I stared at the image. Claire was sitting in my grandfather's chair, the green wooden one he built himself the summer I turned 10. I had sanded the armrests. He had let me paint the first coat, telling me I had steadier hands than he did. That chair was the last place he sat before his legs got too weak to walk down to the dock. And now she was sitting in it like it meant nothing. The comments kept appearing. Relatives, neighbors. "So glad you're all together. That place holds so many memories." No one mentioned me. No one asked where I was. One cousin wrote, "Richard has every right. It's his father's house." I placed my phone face down on the table. Ethan brought me coffee without asking. "Call Jonathan," I said. By Sunday afternoon, the letter had been sent, certified mail, and an email copy for immediate notice. The message was direct. "You are currently occupying property held in an irrevocable trust. This constitutes unauthorized use. You are required to vacate within 72 hours. At that point, my father wasn't dealing with me anymore. He was dealing with legal documents, with official records, with someone who didn't care about family dynamics or emotional leverage. Claire deleted the post that same night. The countdown had started. Monday morning, 41 hours left. My phone rang at 6:47 a.m. Too early for anything casual. Too early for anything good. It was my mother. I stared at the screen for a second before answering. Because no matter how much time passes, there's something in you that still reacts when your mother calls. "Molly." My mother's voice came through the phone, raw and uneven. She had been crying, or she wanted me to believe she had. With her, it was always hard to tell. "Please," she said. "Your father hasn't slept. Claire is going to lose everything. This is tearing our family apart." I sat on the edge of the bed. Ethan was already awake beside me, silent, watching. This didn't start with a document, I said quietly. There was a pause. Molly, I know we weren't perfect, but is this really what you want, to take the house just to punish us? I'm not taking anything, I said. It was already mine. I could hear her inhale sharply. And I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting what Grandpa wanted. Your grandfather wouldn't want this. She snapped. Her voice changed, harder now. He would want us together. I have a letter from him that says otherwise. Silence. A long one. The kind where you can almost hear someone rearranging everything they thought was true. You've changed, she said finally. It wasn't meant as a compliment. I hope so. The call ended without a goodbye. She hung up the way she always did when she lost control of a conversation. Abruptly, so she could tell the story later in a way that made her the victim. I set the phone down. Ethan looked at me. You okay? I nodded. She said I've changed. He let out a small breath. Almost a smile. About time someone noticed. They left on Monday afternoon. 53 hours. Just under the deadline. Emily told me later that Mr. Keller had called my father one last time. If you don't leave, you will be facing a trespassing complaint. And with the documentation in place, you will lose. That was enough. My father packed the car. My mother gathered the dishes she had brought. Claire carried out groceries she had filled the kitchen with, like she had already claimed the place. And then they drove away, the same way they had walked out of my life, without telling me, without looking back, without ever questioning whether it had been theirs to begin with. I didn't go right away. I waited a week, when I finally drove out to Willow Creek Road. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon. The sky was gray, undecided, like it couldn't choose between rain or holding back. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the cabin smelled like old wood and still air. The kitchen was clean. Counters wiped down. The couch cushions straightened. Floors swept. My mother had made sure of that. On the table, there was a single key and a small piece of lined paper. My father's handwriting, smaller than I remembered. This was never about the money. Dad. I read it once, folded it, slipped it into my coat pocket. I didn't know if it was true. I didn't know if he believed it. I didn't know if it mattered. I walked down to the dock. The boards creaked softly under my steps. The chair was still there, my grandfather's chair, facing the water, facing everything and nothing at the same time. I sat down. The lake was calm. A bird skimmed low across the surface, quiet and steady. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt still, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The consequences came quietly, then all at once. Without the sale of the cabin, the $300,000 disappeared. The buyer walked away. Claire's boutique couldn't survive another quarter. By early summer, it closed. Inventory sold off at a loss. My father's guarantee came due. He sold his truck, dipped into his retirement savings early, paid the penalty. Between everything, he managed to cover part of the debt, not all of it. Retirement was pushed back years. The mortgage on their house remained. Heavy, constant, in a town like that. The truth doesn't stay hidden. It spreads, not through headlines, through conversations in driveways, through quiet questions at church, through whispers in grocery aisles. People started asking things my father couldn't easily answer. Why didn't he know about the trust? Did his own father leave him out? And what about that daughter they said was unstable? She had the documents. She had the proof. My father stopped attending community meetings, stopped staying late at work. He came and went quietly, avoiding conversations. Emily told me all of this in pieces, not to make me feel better, not to prove anything, just because she thought I deserved to know how the story ended. I listened, but I didn't celebrate. I didn't call him. I didn't say anything, because there's no satisfaction in watching someone you once needed slowly fall apart. There was only the truth now, and the silence that followed it. Claire found a job as an assistant manager at a furniture store in the next town over. It was steady work, honest work, but far from the life she had built her identity around. She stopped posting online. My mother withdrew from everything. She stopped going to church groups, stopped organizing events, stopped showing up in places where people might ask questions she couldn't answer. Emily told me why. People kept asking about me. And for the first time, my mother didn't have a story ready. The version she had created about me began to crack. The truth was public now. Records don't lie. And in a small town, once facts start catching up, people notice. I didn't feel any victory in that. I didn't want her embarrassed. I just wanted her to stop rewriting who I was. 3 weeks after Claire's store closed, I got a message from her. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I'm sorry. I read it while sitting on the dock, my feet just above the water. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. A week later, Emily told me something else. Your dad asked about you. She said, he didn't tell me to pass it along. He just asked if you were okay. I let that stay where it was. The family started coming back. Slowly. Not all of them, not all at once, but enough. My Aunt Carol called first, the same one who had stayed silent that night. I should have said something. She told me. I saw it. I just didn't speak. I thanked her. It didn't fix anything, but it mattered. A couple of cousins reached out too. Some admitted they always felt something was off but couldn't explain it. Others stayed quiet. Some chose sides. Some disappeared. I didn't chase anyone. I didn't explain myself. I didn't try to correct the story. I just lived my life. Work during the week. The cabin on weekends. Mornings with coffee by the water. Ethan fixing things around the house. Quietly bringing it back to life. People who wanted the truth found it. People who didn't stayed where they were. And I made peace with both. Not everyone needs to understand. And I stopped needing them to. In May, Ethan and I started restoring the cabin. Not changing it. Just listening to it. Fixing what needed fixing. New screens on the porch. A fresh coat on the dock. A leaking faucet finally repaired. Ethan handled the wiring, replacing old systems, bringing light back into rooms that hadn't seen it in years. In the garage, I found my grandfather's tools, everything in place, carefully kept, like he had just stepped away for a moment. In a box nearby, I found old photos, one of me at 6 years old, holding a fish almost as long as my arm, my grandfather behind me, laughing. I held that picture for a long time. He didn't just leave me a house, he left me proof. Proof that I mattered. That someone saw me clearly, not as the strong one, not as the easy one, but as his granddaughter. Someone worth protecting. I framed that photo and placed it in the kitchen, where the afternoon light touches it every day. And every time I look at it, I hear his voice. I already took care of it. And he did. A month later, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a letter. Not through a lawyer. Not through anyone else. Just me. I wrote to my parents. I told them the cabin stays, that it was his decision, and I would honor it. I told them I wouldn't sell it, wouldn't sign it away, and if there was any chance of rebuilding anything between us, it wouldn't start with paperwork. It would start with honesty, with them seeing me, not as the strong one, not as the one who needs nothing, but as their daughter. And I ended it simply. My door is open, but only if you walk through it for the right reasons. Not because you need something, but because you finally see me. I addressed the envelope, stamped it, and dropped it into the mailbox at the end of Willow Creek Road. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't check the mailbox the next morning. Or the one after that. I had said what I needed to say. The rest was up to them. Ethan read the letter before I sealed it. He didn't change a word. He just nodded and said, "That's you. I used to think boundaries were walls, something you build when you're hurt to keep people out. I don't see them that way anymore. Boundaries are doors. You decide who gets to walk through. You decide how." I realized this was never really about a house, or money, or even my family. It was about something much quieter and much harder to see. It was about learning that being strong doesn't mean staying silent while people overlook you. It means knowing when to stand still and say, "This is where it stops." For years, I thought love meant endurance, that if I just tried harder, gave more, asked for less, I would finally be seen. But real love doesn't require you to disappear, and real family doesn't need you to shrink to fit their expectations. What I chose in the end was simple. I didn't fight. I didn't chase revenge. I didn't prove anything loudly. I just told the truth and stood by it. I kept what was meant for me, and I stopped accepting what wasn't. If you would have made the same choice as me, write yes in the comments. If you would have done the opposite, write no. And if you're still thinking about it, write time. There's no wrong answer, only honesty. If this story meant something to you, if even one moment made you feel seen, then you're already part of something bigger. Your voice matters. Your experience matters, and someone out there might need to hear it. So take a second to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs it. Not for me, but for the people who are still trying to find their voice.
Welcome to Family Confessions. Our stories go beyond entertainment, helping viewers recognize toxic behaviors, understand boundaries, and reflect on their relationships, while reinforcing self-worth and the strength to heal and move forward. Each video follows a structured workflow ensuring quality and value for our audience. Thank you for being here.